Welcome to the Strategic Management Accounting course, where we teach the value-adding steps and processes necessary to execute strategy. Whether you are just starting up or looking to grow your business, then this course is for you. With your host, Dr. Neil O'Connor.
Longer duration. There's the time value of money. There may be market risks, there may be operational risks, many other risks that must be compounded into this rate here of 10%. Okay, time value of money is a big thing too. All right, 4% for current assets. So that's why there's a different percentage here. But residual income does not always have to have a different interest for current and fixed assets. It just so has that in this example, but it would not change the outcome of the example in terms of what is optimal and what is not optimal. So that takes us through two scenarios for optimization, and we try to sub-optimization, and we overcome that by having residual incomes. Wow. So residual income in the end allows for different interest charges, different types of assets, as I explained. Return on equity measures induce managers to use debt financing. Return on equity, that's interesting, because return on equity, we've got income and we've got equity. There's our equity portion, there's our debt portion. If we just use a return on equity, this part here, well then why don't we just use debt financing for that amount? So now our denominator for return on equity is smaller, our return on equity goes up. So that's what we mean by return on equity induce managers to use debt financing. In other words, what you've got to realise is that, wow, return on investment or return on asset is income divided by some kind of asset investment. You can play with the income by stuffing channels. Stuffing channels like pre-booking sales that haven't already occurred, so it looks like your income's inflated more than what it really is. You can play with assets. You all know about that through earnings management. You all know about earnings management, right, from corporate finance, corporate financial accounting. You know that? So you can play with assets here. One way of playing with them is changing the debt equity structure if it's in return on equity. ROI measures create incentives for managers to lease assets. Okay, have even less assets. Lease some of them, then you've got less in your asset base. Your ROI goes up higher. Of course, you reduce your income because you've got rental expense coming out in your income here, but you reduce the top and the bottom by the same, the overall ROI will go up. So here are some issues that you need to consider when you're doing that. Here's another related issue that encourages managers to hang on to old assets, because if we hang on to old assets, the capital charge, like depreciation, amortization, makes the asset less over time. And the lower that asset goes, guess what? Less incentive to actually replace it with a new asset, especially in high inflation. You're going to spend a lot more money to replacement. Guess what? When you spend a lot more money, where does that money go? Does it go on the numerator or the denominator of your return on investment? Where does it go? It goes onto the denominator. Guess what's happened to your ROI? It goes down. Did you perform better? No, you just made an investment decision. And your ROI goes down. That's not very encouraging. So you can see why managers may hold on to old assets. Right? Similar to this, for example, mining company, oil. The CEO goes to the divisional manager, hey Jim, any new oil findings in the last 12 months? Jim will say, I'm going to retire in 3 years' time. If we find a new oil deposit or a new iron ore deposit, we're going to have to invest tens of millions of dollars in this. That's going to halve my ROI and my bonus. No, we haven't found any this year. Let's try harder next year. You can imagine the incentives of pushing back in necessary investments that are needed or not needed. That happens. So that's what we mean by the mining example here. Managers are incentivized to change the assets because it affects their ROI. Delaying investment is a big way of manipulating the denominator. What about this one? There's the late Steve Jobs with the little iMac. Did any of you have an iMac? Let me remind you, we're talking about 1990. Were you here then? Okay, a long time ago. All right. Okay, I remember I did play with an iMac once, not for a long time, but it was the first time I saw it, about 1991. Beautiful machine, but they're still working. And so let's just keep these old computers around, because if we replace them, it's going to cost 5, 10, 20 times as much to replace. Again, that's going to add to the bottom line. Okay, ROI goes down again. So lots of incentives to actually manipulate that ROI figure. See, right at the start of chapter 10, it says accounting. We love accounting. It's glorious. Why is it glorious? Because it's precise. It's reliable. It's inexpensive. Okay, it's congruent and partially controllable. All these beautiful things about accounting, but not so much. They are subject to manipulation. And so you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of that. We want to use that, but we need to be aware of the manipulation. These are on the same PowerPoint slide, but I just split it over 2 slides. So there we go. There, look, now we've come all this way of looking at accounting and return on investment, return on equity, return on assets employed. We can do all those different formulas. We've got suboptimal responses when it comes to how can we best set up the measure and the hurdle rate so that we get added value. All we want is for the managers here, the divisional managers, to make correct decisions that add value to the organisation. Add value, add shareholder value. That's all we want. And what you see in chapter 10 are a lot of examples about when accounting works against that objective. So when you're looking through chapter 10, list down or underline all the instances of the tricky little things. Or, in the words of chapter 5, what type of gaming behaviour can management do? It's gamesmanship. What type of gaming behaviour can they do? Let's have a break now for 5, 6, 7 minutes. When we come back, I'm going to take you through economic value added, EVA. Thank you. Have a break, everyone.